It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Luke, I am your father. Okay. Let's see. You like our show? We should check out our Patreon. Let's take a look at what we have on Patreon. It's at the end of the month, so we really super duper need Patreon support right now. This is because we get the check on the first of the month. So anything you put in now, we can pick up and pay these bills. Oh boy, David Livingston. I had him come back, and we got into a lot of stuff about the Process Church and about the Kennedy assassination. And just by some kind of weird synchronicity, it matched up with some information that I taped with Sean Howe about the Thomas King Prasad, the Agents of Chaos, High Times, and the Paranoid End of the 70s. And, you know, I know all those guys that we were talking about. And we're so, just we're talking about the Roy Radin, you know, Robert Evans, you know, a lot of different things, a lot of connections that I found very interesting. So I encourage you to listen to those both. I'm going to play them on the same night in a couple of weeks. I still got some old stuff I got to play. I got to play Turbo Paul, The Art Hostage. I got to play The Young Jerks about the marijuana industry. A lot of marijuana shows, considering a guy who's been out of the marijuana business quite a long time. Although I did have a conversation with one of my old smuggling buddies this week. One of my old partners in the marijuana business back on Staten Island. We had I think it was last night, as a matter of fact, maybe the night before. We had a long talk about some, I don't know, turning point, pivot points, benchmarks in my life. I'm trying to make some decisions about my life. I figured, let me talk to this guy who knew me better than anybody at the time. You know, we're both the same age now. And I got to make some life decisions. I figured, you know, I'm going to talk to this guy. We had similar lives, but it seems like he checked out quite a while ago. I'm still sort of in the game, but if he's listening, God, I love you, brother. But, you know, let's see, what else? Bart Camp about the Prayer Man book. This is a JFK assassination book about a fuzzy photo of Lee Harvey Oswald in a doorway. Gets into a lot of minutia there. Lila Micklethwait, I'm playing her tonight about her war against Pornhub. And how Pornhub, people think it's this innocuous, harmless porno channel, but really there's a lot of child pornography, rape videos on there, a lot of abusive stuff on there that they refuse to take down. They're making money off all this stuff. They refuse to take it down. So it's really outrageous. And it's a hugely profitable place. You know, the guy who owns, I don't know, I'll get into that later. Oh, great. Lost my mouse. 1 second. I got to find this thing in the dark here. Mike Parziale. I'm playing Mike Parziale tonight to MJ Victims. He always comes back with his information about great information. He's been investigating and researching the Michael Jackson Saychuk and Robeson case against Michael Jackson for years and years and years. I've been interviewing him for about 8-9 years now. It's so funny because after I started interviewing Mike, you know, first interview I ever did, and then some others, you know, track him down and try and interview him. But we have such a rapport, and we get along so good. And I've known him so long. Great guy. And so I have him on tonight, too, as well. Because of the David Livingston interview, I went back and I dug up an old interview I did with Robert Merritt, who was a confidential informant during the Watergate trial. And he was an informant for Shackley, who was like a sheriff or something like that, and he was sitting out in front of the Watergate Hotel by coincidence as all this went on. But it turns out Shackley had all the CIA connections and stuff like that, and Livingston is convinced that Shackley was in charge of the JFK assassination, which would make sense because all those Watergate burglars were also involved in that. Now, so I sent Livingston the Robert Merritt interview for him to listen to. It's a very rare interview. I don't think Robert Merritt's done another interview in his whole life, you know? Very low-profile guy. But that's the kind of stuff you get here at the Opera Report, not that nonsense going on out there, which I'm going to be talking about tonight. A lot of nonsense. I love talking about nonsense. Turbo Paul, Van Gogh, Conspiracy, I'm playing him next week. Matthew Phelan and the James O'Keefe Project Veritas, played that last week. A lot of old content from the members section. The Attorney Robert David Lewis, the FOIA request on Boys in the Tracks. That's an excellent summation of the Mena, Arkansas drug smuggling operation. Taping Monday with May Pang. She got a new film coming out, and I'm actually going to be part of one of those all-day-long media, where the poor guest has to sit in a media room all day long and be interviewed by different media outlets. Most of them just interview for 15, 20 minutes, but I'm going to be doing a whole 51 minutes with her. Poor May. But this is how she wanted to do it. She wanted to organize it on this release of this film. So God bless her. I got a copy of the film. I'll be watching it this week. We're going to be taping again with David Wheeler about Lauren Boebert, his lawsuit, and the new shenanigans, of the what went on there in the. I only have David Wheeler on. He's been on about 10 times. I only have him on when Lauren Boebert does something crazy. He's been on 10 times. Ah, God, Zooks, what do you do in life, Anyway, if you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon. I can use your support right now. There's a tier on there. I was talking about my Tears of a Clown last week. $50 a month if you want to really, really dig in and support the show and support my work. I'm really at a crossroads in my life. I'm thinking about retiring from public life and from the radio show and from PI work. And I just don't think I have... I have one last chance, one last second wind. Hopefully get some help down here, and then we'll see what happens with that. So the Spreaker archives, and also too, if you can share right now, this is the big advertising months for radio advertising. So if you can share the Spreaker link, okay, on Twitter and Facebook when you listen to the shows, if you could share it and retweet it, all of that. I make 10% more from the advertisers on Spreaker than I do on Apple Plays or something like that. So if you can switch over to Spreaker instead of Apple Plays, just that little difference would be a huge difference for me. If you could just make that effort for me. This is the time of year, September, October, November, December. This is when advertising rates are like triple, quadruple. So this is when you make all your money in a podcast or advertising on radio. And if we don't, then the rest of the year you starve and you're broke, which would be nothing new for me. Let's see here. Let's check the old notes and see what we're getting into here, getting ourselves into. First, a lot of stuff I want to talk about. We had some scathing litigation this week. The judge ruled that this isn't included in the title. The more dilemma, the bad guys of the Mar-a-Lago, yeah, okay. There was a case this week in New York. It's part of the Letitia James case, which is going to be next month in October. And Trump just announced, by the way, that he's going to attend that trial, the Letitia James $250 million fraud trial of the Trump organization and the Trump family and the whole bunch. Now, bad news, Mr. Trump, is that he's already lost that case because the same judge in that case just ruled this week that the Trump organization has been running a fraud for the past, since the 80s, really. And he's stripped the entire the fraudsters of their licenses to do business in the state of New York. And he's ordered that they come up with 3 receivers to liquidate the Trump businesses, to come up with 3 names in 10 days. So this is no joke. Now, you got a lot of people out there, talking heads, people who should know better, saying that, I got a lawyer in the chat room right now, so she can verify everything I'm saying. I can't get a rubber stamp by what I say here, Kat. What do you call it? the arguments in this case, or this ruling, have already been appealed. Okay, they've been ruled on and appealed. So there's nothing left to appeal in this case. As a matter of fact, some of these, the Trump defense, let's see. The New York State Attorney General was claiming the Trump organization has entered into a practice of inflating the values of their properties and their assets, and then underestimating the values of those properties and assets when they want to pay taxes. But when they want to borrow against them, they inflate them. Okay? And so then by saying that the property is worth more, you get a lower interest rate, you get better terms with the bank. Now, the Trump response to this has been threefold. One is that, hey, nobody's been harmed because the banks were paid back. Okay, but the banks have been harmed because they've been where they charged less interest than they could have. They could have charged points, interest, a lot of things. The insurance companies were also defrauded because the properties were undervalued. So the insurance rates were yet less, and taxes were defrauded because they paid less tax on these properties than they did, rather than what they stated in their statements of financial condition, they call it. Now, when I was in New York, they used to call these things affidavits of financial condition, but now they call them statements of financial condition that Trump would present to get these different evaluations and appraisals of his properties. So Trump's response was, well, hey, that happened so long ago, it's past the statute of limitations. Too late. Okay. And the judge ruled that was invalid. A scathing ruling by this judge, too. Basically, hey, you and your lawyers are a bunch of liars. And I warned you last time. Last time you tried to come up with this excuse about statute of limitations. And the other one was there was no harm was done because everybody was paid back. And he says, that doesn't apply here either. You lawyers are smarter than that to be presenting this defense. And then when they tried to present that defense a third time, he said, that's it, I'm fining you, each one of you attorneys, $7,500 each. There's 5 attorneys. So the judge has already ruled that Trump's a fraud. He's already stripped them of their business licenses. And now he's going to be the judge in this case, Letitia James, is bringing forward, which she's demanding $250 million in damages. And I believe she's going to win that handily and quickly. Now, when you watch this on the news and on Twitter, it's been totally bizarrely twisted into this bizarre response by Eric Trump where he says, this is so ridiculous. The judge just ruled that Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million. Everybody knows it's worth more than that. And then you hear this repeated over and over. Don Jr. said, well, if it's only worth $18 million, I'll take 10 of them. So and now this has been spun around that people actually think that the entire basis of this litigation was based on the valuation, that the judge made a valuation out of his own head of what the value of one of these properties was. And this covers, the ruling covers many properties. Trump's own apartment, which is a 10,000 square foot apartment that he valued it at a 30,000 square foot apartment, 3 times the actual square footage of his own residence. Other properties too in Manhattan, and then other golf courses, all around the country. And then Mar-a-Lago was only one out of several. And they're making this out that the whole case revolved around Mar-a-Lago. It did not. It does not. Okay, it's but one property that the judge mentioned. The judge came up with the figure of not 18 million, but 18 to 27 million, because in the year 2011, it was appraised by the Palm Beach County Assessor's Office as being worth 18 million, and in 2020, it was assessed as being worth 27 million. When Trump first purchased this property in 1985, he only paid $2 million. Okay? Then he wanted to get some tax breaks. So what he did was he agreed to a deed restriction on the property that said, hey, we're not going to touch the outside facade of this place. We're not going to change anything. It's a historical landmark. And also, too, the property can only be used as a club, as a golf club membership club. It cannot be used as a residence. Portions of the property cannot be developed with homes and private property. See, there are deed restrictions on the property that caused it to be appraised by the county of Palm Beach in 2011 at $18 million and 2020 at $27 million. Today it's probably worth, Palm Beach would say it's worth about $35 million. Okay, as properties increase in Florida, just off the top of my head. Okay, my appraisal and estimation. Now, Mr. Eric Trump comes out and he posts this picture of properties in Palm Beach nearby, comps you call them in the real estate business, and he says, look at all these places. The judge says it's only worth $18 million in 2011. So he posts these places for sale right around the block for $59 million. Here's another one for $40 million. Here's one for $39 million. Here's another one for $39 million. Here's another one for $38 million. And these are all private residents. These aren't clubs. These are places where you can live. Trump's not allowed to live there, by the way. He's breaking the ordinances of Palm Beach, okay, by living there and making this his residence. He's not allowed to. That's why he's getting this big giant tax break. He's only paying taxes on a $27 million, by the way, not these amounts that Eric is pointing to, 59, 40 million, 39 million. But let's just throw all that away. Because Trump is not claiming that this property is worth $39 million or $50 million or even $60 million or even $100 million. Okay? He's claiming, let me pull this up. He's claiming it's worth, what is this, like $612 million. He's claiming at the same time he's paying tax on a property worth $27 million. He's claiming to borrow money to use this as an asset to borrow, using his own statements of financial condition, that it's worth $612 million. So Mr. Eric Trump once again says, oh, all the real estate people, the moguls in Palm Beach are laughing about this $18 million valuation. And Jenna Ellis and all these other people are, I've been there. What a beautiful property, worth far more than $18 million. It was worth $18 million in 2011. And that's because of the deed restrictions. Okay? No one's saying it's not a nice property, although I've heard some things about it. But beyond that, Trump himself is saying it's worth $1.5 billion now. And they had a chance. Now, you're going to court. You got an issue about the value of your property, right? Well, what do? You bring in an appraisal, right? Even or the Academy Awards, right? The Oscars. At the beginning of the Oscars, they say, and we tallied up these votes, and the votes and the results of these voting are held in a safe at the accounting firm of Price Waterhouse. Okay? Trump couldn't even come up with Price Waterhouse. He couldn't come up with Price. He couldn't come up with Waterhouse. He couldn't even come up with one of them. Forget both of them. He couldn't come up with any accounting firm, any appraisal firm to come up and say anything. I'm going to put my reputation on the line here and say these properties are worth $1.5 billion. And Trump actually said at one point, well, I can go to some guy in Saudi Arabia and get $1.5 billion anytime I want. And the judge noted, and well, that sounds more like bribery, influence peddling than it does a fair real estate transaction. Because the judge isn't stupid, okay? Trump brings in an affidavit of opinion from a guy who is they describe as the most well-respected real estate guy of high-end real estate properties in Palm Beach. And he comes back and he says, oh, this property is worth $1 billion easy. How do I come to that conclusion? And they deposed the guy, right? How does he come to this conclusion? Well, I can dream up. There must be many billionaires out there who would want this property to live on there with their families and stuff like that. Anyone between Elon Musk and Bill Gates and all those in between, the dignitaries, kings around the world would want this property and be willing to pay $1 billion for it. That's not... Where's Price Waterhouse? where's Century 21 real estate appraisals? There's no, they couldn't come up with a legit exhibit or expert witness to come in and testify that the property was worth 10% of what Trump claimed on these loan applications and his statements of financial conditions. But now, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. and people like Jenna Ellis and all these other characters, they think you're stupid, okay? They think you're stupid, and you're not going to listen to the Opperman report, okay? And I read the whole order. $18 million. No judge is saying the property is worth $18 million in 2023. Okay, they're saying it's worth $27 million. And that's because of the deed restrictions that Trump agreed to, not to develop the property, not to use it as a private residence, to only use it as a club. So you would have to sell this, not to Bill Gates, not to Elon Musk, for their compound, for their family and friends. You'd have to sell it to someone who wants to operate this as a golf club. Now, Trump in his response says too, well, yeah, the deed restrictions. All we have to do is go to court and we can get those deed restrictions removed. But that you can't borrow money against something, hey, we're going to go to court and maybe win. That's again, it's a gamble. It's a speculation. That's not an affidavit of financial condition. That's a speculation. So this is an open and shut case here, and it's a scathing decision by this judge. I was going to get into an analogy. I forget what it was about, because a lot of people think, oh, Ed's always broke, Ed was poor. That's why he's a socialist, because he's poor all the time. But when I had the beeper company, when I had the telecommunications company, Front Page Beepers in New York City, and you can look it up, by the way. I had over 100 employees at one point. Okay, and people says, oh, he sold beepers in a cart in the mall. Yeah, we sold beepers from carts in a mall, but I had an office, and at the end of my company, what my specialty was I would buy up other beeper companies. I was putting people out of business because I had the locations, and the name by that point. And so other companies were charging too little on their beepers. They couldn't keep up with their bills, so I would when they wanted to sell their companies and when they were going out of business, I would contact them. Listen, I'll take over your contracts and I'll take over your debt. Okay. Now, how this would, because by the way, because what Trump's doing here about inflating the value of his properties, that's not unusual. It's done in business. Okay, it's a natural thing. This is why I was going to get to the point. It's a natural thing done in business. I've done it myself, and like I said, I would, let's say a guy had 1,000 beeper accounts, okay, and it depending on how much you're billing a month. I was billing $12.50 a month, and then the age of the accounts, the age of the contracts and these things. How long has this person been paying this bill every month? That contract could be worth anything from $75 to $300. Okay, and you'd purchase those contracts from the guy's business. Okay, if you had 1,000 of them, you'd give them between $75,000 and $300,000. Sometimes I'd have to borrow the money to purchase those contracts. Now, what I would do is I would tell the other company, I'll take over your debt. All the money you owe, I'm going to assume that debt for you, so you don't have any bad credit. You're not going to look bad. All your personal guarantees are all going to be taken care of. And part of the sale was, and part of the financing was, I'm purchasing these accounts and I'm purchasing this guy's debt. Now, I wouldn't pay the debt. Okay. Immediately after taking over this company, a lot of the debt would be airtime debt from the beeper companies, where you're purchasing the airtime to resell to your customers. So what I would do is I would contact them right away and I'd say, hey, listen, man, I'm Ed Opperman from Front Page Beepers. Okay, I just took over this other company. I'm not paying this guy's debt. Okay, I'll give you 20% of what he owes you. Okay, otherwise I'll take these beepers, I'll trade them all in with new beepers, I'll buy airtime from somebody else. Okay, and they're not going to mess with me, so they would go along with it. They would give me a big cut on the guy's debt and other debt. You know, the guy owes his landlord and stuff like that. You know, you tell him, I'll give you 20 cents on the dollar. Okay, you know, what are you going to, okay, you want to come sue me, man? Hey, look, I owe money all over town. Look at my debts. So that's all normal business. Okay. But that's something I could have been charged with fraud, you know, going in there and, elevating the appraised value of the beeper company to borrow more money. And then when I had that money, I would keep it instead of paying off the debt, because I negotiated the debt down. On one hand, you know, it's very legal. You know, it's legal, you know, but it is kind of fraud. But now the thing is, too, no one would get charged with something like that unless there's some other kind of criminal activity, like a drug case, you got something like that, or, you know, you stolen money, or, you know, to bank robbery money, or some other kind of crime that you would be charged for a crime in those kind of business dealings. Now, I've spoken to some New York attorneys. Trump could be charged criminally with these false financial statements. It's because that's what he's being charged with the Stormy Daniels case, filing false financial statements. So he could be charged, and after he loses the civil case, and in such a scathing decision, he could be charged criminally on these very same charges. Let me see. I'm kind of losing my train of thoughts. Let's just move on from that. Unless the Saudis buy it for $1 billion. That's right. All right. Wait, what else did he say? I forget what else. It's just they could have brought in an expert, you know, but they didn't. They brought in a guy with an opinion, you know. So all this stuff about Eric Trump saying, "Oh, the judge said it's only worth $18 million, and look at these other properties for $40 million. They're asking for this $600 million. They said it's worth $1 billion." So even their argument, but they think you're dumb. They think you're not going to read. They think you're not going to listen. You're not paying attention. They think you're dumb. You know, and it's sad. It's pathetic, man. And it's sad and pathetic that so many people do just buy into it, you know. I was at a meetup, a business meetup this week. I was invited to come to, and I thought it was going to be something more like the Chamber of Commerce, something, but it's kind of this BS kind of meeting. And this topic came up, and the guy says, "Oh, you think it's only worth $18 million?" I says, "Dude, that's not what the order says. That's not what Trump said it was worth $600 million. You think it's worth $600 million? Oh, it's worth $600 million. Okay, what about the deed restrictions? Well, I don't know anything about that. All right. I have a moral dilemma. Well, let's talk about some other criminal charges. Trump almost caught a charge here trying to purchase a gun while he's out on bail. He's indicted for a felony. I think that's line number 14. I've printed out that purchase form, number 15. Are you under arrest or currently charged in any court with a felony, any crime punishable by imprisonment for more than 1 year? Okay, so that's number 15. If he would have put no on that questionnaire purchasing that gun that they claimed he purchased, I believe it was South Carolina. If he had put no on there, he'd be charged with the exact same charges that Mr. Hunter Biden is facing charges for now, lying on this form about being a drug addict. And I got to tell you, that's another one I don't think that they could find. It doesn't come up in the Brady background check that if you're under indictment and you're out on bail, if you have an arrest, I don't think they look for that. They just look for convictions. So that is one you can lie and get away with. But I got to check on that. By the way, if you're out there, if you got an FFL, a federal firearms license, I have some questions for you. And I know I got some guys out there that are experts in this area. I got some questions about how things used to be in the old days with these Brady applications and these Brady background checks and what they are today. I'm not in a situation right now where I'm hanging out at a gun shop anymore, or I have friends in that business. So if you're out there, I have some questions for you. You know, people have no trouble contacting me for questions. They want free advice all day long. I'm asking you for some free advice. That's how we're doing our time here. 32 minutes. I didn't even get to the big topics of the show. Okay, we'll get into the moral dilemma at the last thing. Oh, let's get into this stuff here. I have some gossip for you out there that I heard about. Melania Trump has renegotiated her prenup with Trump, And from what I understand from people in New York, that this is the third renegotiation she's done since they first got married. And I also understand that this is out of concerns for that she's afraid the money's going to be all gone. Okay, this is it out of concern for this $250 judgment coming up, and all these other. There's a ton of litigation. I even said this week, I says, you know what? If a guy's facing criminal charges, all these civil cases like Peter Strzok suing him and Michael Cohen suing him, that there should be a hold on all those civil cases, because every defendant should have a right to assist in his defense. And how can you, if you're getting sued here, you're getting sued there, this C.E. Carroll, whoever she is, the poor woman that was raped at Neiman Marcus, I believe it was. But then I see Trump suing Steele from the Steele dossier, you know? So he's filing suits. The guy's up to his neck in court litigation, depositions, and appearances all over town, getting printed for criminal charges, and he's suing freaking Steele? That's up under the bridge, man. Plus, you're going to lose that suit. But the hot gossip off the presses here is that Trump and Melania has renegotiated, and that the money is going into a trust in their son's name to protect the funds. That should he go bankrupt and lose everything, that monies will be protected. If you watch the impeachment hearing, there was an impeachment inquiry hearing, which was so pathetic, man, and so poorly run. Half the witnesses that these House Republicans brought in contradicted what they were trying to get forward. It was really a circus. But what they said is, okay, fine, we have nothing now, but what we want to get is subpoenas, court-ordered subpoenas for the bank records of the Bidens. Okay? Now, I happen to know, and if you listen to this show and listen to some guests we've had on the show, that one of the things they wanted to do was find people to hack into Hunter Biden's laptop bank accounts, so they know where these accounts are. Okay, this is the stuff they can't say. They can't say to you on CNN. Okay, they know where the money is. Okay, but they just need court orders to go in to find it because they couldn't hack in. All right, but that money's there. Now let's see here. Now, okay, my moral dilemma or the bad guys. Let's do the bad guys first. I was talking to a partner of mine from the old smuggling business. And he starts, I was telling him, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but I'm thinking of doing this and doing that. What do you think I should do? Am I biting off too much that I can chew? You're my age, or we're kind of old now. We're kind of missing a step. What do you think? And we started getting into different, I'm telling him about, some of my adventures over the past few years, and Trump and Epstein and stuff like that. And he says, oh, that Trump, they go after him about everything. They're whatever. He can't do anything right. They're picking on him for all this and that and this and that. And I says, okay. And I says, but, like you and me, we were out there doing stuff. Weren't they on our backs too? When we stretched the law, didn't they come after us? Isn't that fair now that they would go after him too? They came after me, they came after you, they come after him. But people kind of think that, well, they're not going to come after me. They're going to go after those other guys, those bad guys. See, we watch, from the time we go to kindergarten, and the cop comes and does the Parents' Day, Parents' Occupation Day, they come in, and cop comes in and says, oh, yeah, we chase down bad guys. Those are the bad guys. We're not interested in you. We're out those looking for those bad guys. And they use this expression that people that they're arresting are bad guys, which is such a simplistic way to look at things, And I'm watching the news this week, and Trump is talking about how General Miley should be charged with treason and executed for treason. This is his own general he appoints as governor. Well, we have a former president actually threatening executions, firing squads, treason for former members of their cabinet. And the reason why is Miley contacted the Chinese and says, "Hey, listen, I know Trump's crazy, but we're on top of the nuclear. We're not going to let him nuke you in his last days in office because he was so out of his mind." Now, this is outrageous. This is unheard of in my lifetime, your lifetime. Anybody listen to the show, your lifetime, that we have this kind of situation. But again, people think like, well, if Trump got in and we had like a fascist police state, they wouldn't be coming after me. They'd be going after those bad guys, the bad guys, not me. I'm a good guy. And even Trump said today, says with his plan to deal with these shoplifters, we have this organized shoplifting right now, that, well, the way we're going to deal with this is that if a shoplifter is leaving the store, they're going to be shot. Okay, and then we're talking about shooting people for shoplifting. Like, this is a normal discussion to be having among normal, sane, sober adults. Okay, now we're talking about executing people for shoplifting. But again, it's not me or you, it's the bad guys. Now, I got to tell you something, man. The most traumatic time of your life is that first time those cops come and put the cuffs on you. The first time. After it gets easier. But the first time you're under arrest. And I remember the first time I was under arrest, it was over a fist fight where I was right. Okay, man, I was right to start that fight. It was with my girlfriend's ex-husband. It was abusing his kids, man. He was stealing money. He was doing all kind of stuff like that. He was insulting me. And I told him, dude, next time I see you, when the cops aren't here, I'm going to beat your ass down. And then, I went to my guys and I said, listen, man, this guy got to get a beating. I need somebody to do this for me. And I said, oh, Ed, we can't do that. Oh, it's going to bring attention down to us. I don't know, cause problems. I said, okay, I'm going to do it myself then. Okay, I came to you with this. I'm going to do it myself. So then, but I get arrested and that jeopardizes the whole organization. Of course, everybody's all in an uproar now. Okay, but it had to be done. Okay, I was right for doing it. I say to this day I was right for doing it. Beating this guy down. Had to be done. And so when cuffs were being put on me, and I was a career criminal at the time, but still, like, oh, I don't deserve this. I'm not a bad guy. I'm a good guy. Now, just imagine the average guy out there that especially back when I lived in Vegas, I used to deal with this all the time. Because, you got friends, your kids, friends, their parents, you know them from school and from picnics and stuff like that, what do you do? I'm a private investigator. What do you do? Well, I sell bumpers, I paint houses, or from church, you meet people, you get to know people, neighbors. And here you got someone who's never been in trouble with the law before, and they get busted on a DUI or a domestic violence, these little BS charges, And, well, who do we call? Well, we know that guy. We know from church, we know the cop. Let's call it. Oh, no, we can't call the cop. He's he'll look at us. He'll think we're terrible people. We can't do that. Let's call Eddie Opperman. He's a PI. He's a shady guy. He's used to deal with criminals all the time and shady people. We'll talk to him. He keeps his mouth shut. We know that. Let's call him. Ed, what do we do? My husband, got arrested. My son got arrested for domestic violence. He had a fight with his cousin, got arrested for domestic violence. What do we do? What do we get? A bail bond? We got a lawyer? What do we do first? And I said, well, let's look it up, see how much the bail is. Okay, you don't need a bail bond, so let's put up the money yourself. You'll save all that money, and I'll help you through the process. I'll do it for you $100, $85, $150, and you save you $500 on bail. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, thank you. And I get him through the whole process. I take him down to the jail, walk him through the whole thing. Wait there with the door, where the guy comes out. I've been there 100 times. You know, so when a guy comes walking out, tying his shoelaces and getting dressed out, you know, he sees this friendly face there to pick him up. All that stuff, right? So those kind of people from church who get arrested for a DUI or something, they're not a bad guy. But when those cuffs are being put on them, and there's a disconnect in their head goes on. But what's going on? I go to work. I take care of my family. I love my wife. I love my kids. I take care of my mother. Why am I in handcuffs? I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a terrible person. Because that's what people think are involved in the criminal justice system. Bad guys. But they're not. They're you and me. And if you don't think, if there's going to be a police state and they're shooting people in the back leaving stores, okay, and when we're arresting generals, 5-star generals, and executing them just because Trump doesn't like them, and he's going after MSNBC because he doesn't like what they say about him. If you're sitting there in your right mind, and this is coming from a guy that's been adjudicated as a rapist in the Carroll case, the judge ordered, judge's order, oh no, this guy's guilty of rape. Another judge, this guy's a fraud and a con man. He's not allowed to do business in the state of New York anymore. I can do business in the state of New York, but this guy can't. He can run for president. Okay? If you think that all this stuff, this martial law and this police state and shooting people in the back and executing generals, that all applies to somebody else, that applies to the bad guys and doesn't apply to you, you're in for a rude awakening one night. Okay? We're looking at dark times in this country right around the corner. Okay? And we all, and I'm not saying, oh, well, Biden's Joe Biden, he sniffs people and he steals money. I know he does, man, but at least we know it's not martial law yet. It's not the dictatorship yet. It's close. It's just as bad with him. We need to really get rid of all these capitalists, you know. But to openly root for a guy saying he wants to take away your civil rights, take away your right to a trial and shoot you in the back, because you think it's going to be someone else getting shot in the back. And there's a guy I'm talking to last night was a career criminal. He's all, you know, more than me. I say we're doing on time. And it just goes in one ear and out the other. It's all tough stuff. Ed, you think the property's worth $18 million? Ha, 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 ha. Oh, Ed, you're so silly. Ed thinks it's worth $18 million. Oh, Ed, look at the properties next door. It's just amazing. Just amazing. My moral dilemma. Okay, I have a moral dilemma, and I'm going to seek out your advice. You might remember Dr. Laura Schlesinger. She used to have a talk show, Dr. Laura. It was on AM radio in the afternoon. She was one of the top-rated radio people, man. I loved her show. And it goes back, my appeal to this show, because when I had the beeper company, we had the office there, we had this really fancy phone system. It was called Wide Area Centrex, so that my condo across the street from the mall and the office, we were all within a couple of miles, and we were close enough within the same telephone exchange that we had like extensions. The extension in my house was the extension in the office, you know, and we could transfer calls for free. Or I could pick up the call and pick up the phone in my house, or hit the speaker button and listen to conversations in the office. So we had all these numbers. They're called rollover numbers. You have the main number. What was it? Yeah. No, that wasn't it. I forget what the number was, but the beeper company number. I forget what it was. But what happened was, so what do you call it? We had these rollover numbers. They'd call the main number, and if someone was talking on that number and someone else called up, it would ring to the next number in sequence. So we had this employee. I would love to know what she's doing right now. Her name was Dawn. And she used to make prank phone calls to the Dr. Laura show. And the main thing was that I learned, and I realized this later on when I would listen to the show, is the call screeners would insist that you thank Dr. Laura. Be sure and thank Dr. Laura when she comes on the line. Dr. Laura, thank you so much for taking my call. And then when I knew this, that the call screener may just say this, I noticed it when anybody would call up. but so did Dawn. So she would, call up, and they would say to remind her, listen, what's your moral dilemma? And she'd say, my husband wants to circumcise the baby, and I don't, and we have, different, all this kind of stuff, right? Oh, I'm invited to a party, but the people at the party aren't married, and they have children together, and they're living in sin. I don't know if I should go to this baby shower because the child was born out of wedlock. I have a moral dilemma, Dr. Laura. What should I do? And Dr. Laura, of course, had this moral superiority over the world. She can give you this advice. So what would happen was you had to call up and say, thank you, Dr. Laura, for taking the call. So one of the times, Dawn goes, I've been waiting here for 15 minutes. Now I have to go. My boyfriend's waiting for me. And they would, Dr. Laura would freak out, okay? And then the call screener would freak out. And, of course, they would block that number. But Dawn was so insane with all this stuff, then she would use the next number and the rollover numbers. And then she even started having those numbers changed. She was an evil genius, okay? And the whole office could listen, okay? She was on hold for like 20 minutes, and she'd tell us, okay, I got a good one. She would be working on it all weekend long. She'd come out, I got a great one for Dr. Laura, a prank call. And then we could all listen to it on our speakerphones after she started the call. And it was always hysterical. This crazy stuff about, me and my husband are having this argument, but then my boyfriend's in prison and he's getting out. And I should have like these zingers at the end. So that was Dr. Laura with the moral dilemmas. It's funny now because Dr. Laura got a real bad reputation. She was against homosexuality. She was against a lot of stuff. And so one time we went on a camping trip, and I used to love listening to Dr. Laura. Not that I agreed with her stuff, but I just love listening to the show. I love talk radio. I've always loved it. And we went camping at Mount Charleston with another couple. I don't know if I had a baby yet. I don't know if it had to be. Yeah, Victoria had to be like a little tiny baby. And we got this great spot at Mount Charleston. I love this spot. You could put a hammock up. It was like near like a cliff where you could see this huge view. It was beautiful. And so we were setting up camp up there. And the other couple and my wife, and I guess the baby too, or maybe the baby was sleeping, and I stayed behind at the camp to get things ready and get things going. And I put on Dr. Laura on the radio. And I happened to notice this couple, this lesbian couple, this two women, walking by the camp. People, because our spot was like a very in high demand spot, and people would come there anyway to look overlook the scenic view, like where the hammock was. So you had it was the best spot there, and I reserved it in advance. But you had to put up with that people would be coming by your camp. If you wanted privacy, to get a different spot. And so I had Dr. Laura playing on the thing, and I'm listening, whatever, barbecuing, whatever I'm doing. And this couple comes walking by. And I notice that they're walking by kind of slow when they're looking over at me. And then they get a certain distance, and they turn around, and they walk by me again. So they're kind of looking over at me. So finally, I says, okay, well, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? And they come over to me. And they go, so we hear your show on the radio there, and, it's very offensive. And I says, yeah, I know, yeah, Dr. Laura. And she goes, do you know what intolerance means? And I go, what? She goes, do you know what the word intolerance means? Because the woman on the radio there is very intolerant of other people's beliefs and other people's, civil rights and their civil liberties, and she's very intolerant of other people. Could you mind turning it off? Totally missing the point that here I am alone in my camp listening to the radio. And they're so intolerant that they're coming by that they have to tell me to turn it off, And they just happen to be passing by, and their poor ears can't be offended by listening to Dr. Laura for a few minutes. Even when I'm sure in most of our politics, we probably agreed 100%, except for, putting your... enforcing your opinion on other people, and by insisting that they not listen to stuff. But my moral dilemma, I have one for you right now, and I want to hear your opinion, is there is a superstar Twitter account. And this account is of the other political persuasion that I am. It's a highly capitalist, highly right-wing account. And it's an anonymous account. Okay, and I've been working on some stuff to identify people lately from their Twitter handles and their different various anonymous Skype handles and stuff like that. And I was looking back through some communications with this person because I have had communications with them about the Jeffrey Epstein matter where they were pontificating as experts, and I contacted them. I says, well, you know, that's my case. If you'd like to discuss it, I can explain to you what happened in real life. Would you be interested in hearing that? No, Ed, we're too busy. We're too busy tweeting to speak to someone personally involved. We're too busy for you. So anyway, I've identified this person. Now, and I've looked into their personal life and what they do for an occupation in real life, and it's pretty interesting. Okay, it's pretty scandalous. Okay, and if I were to expose this person, who they are, and dox them, I guess people say, it would make national news. Okay, and it would be a big story, and it would be a big. And by the way, since I do this kind of work as a private investigator too, it'd be good for my career. I know a couple of things too. I found out who they are partially due to some private communications. I take that very seriously. When people communicate with me, I guard their privacy. So there's that issue there. Secondly, if I did out this person, there would be repercussions. They would be stalked and harassed, just like I'm stalked and harassed for using my real name. Okay, maybe not to the extent that I am, but they would. Okay, so my moral dilemma is, do I take the personal gain and the personal fame and the personal advantage and even some financial benefit for outing this person and exposing who they are and what they really do for a living, what their occupation is, which is very unimpressive? Then it would probably destroy their Twitter persona. Or do I just take it to my grave and just let this person live in peace, not threaten, not endanger them by exposing them, and just allow them to blather on like the BS artists that they are and fool poor gullible right-wingers who probably donate tons of money to this guy. But anyway, that's my moral dilemma. So if you want to give me a little tip on how to handle that, if you can do your best Dr. Laura impersonation and send me a note, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. Good night.